graduation ceremony. I would like to thank each and everybody that showed up for taking time out to come here today to the graduation ceremony. We will be giving off diplomas. I want to say up front that we did not receive all of the diplomas as yet. Some of them are still in the Netherlands, but everyone will still receive a certificate. And when the official diploma reach, you will also receive your diploma. I apologize for that, but that was out of our hands at the moment. Also, I want to inform those that made 40 years and 35 years service that there is still an official ceremony that will take place. It's a little later than expected, but it will still be done hopefully very soon in the near future. With that, I would like to congratulate everybody for their hard work and their dedication over the last couple of years, the time they invested into studying and the practical training. So, congratulations. And with that, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister, Mr. Luc Messelina, to come forward and say a couple words, and then we'll go over to the official hand over the diplomas.
Today, we gather not merely to mark the end of a training program. It's not about, it starts actually now. It's not finalizing a program. No, it's actually starting a life program, a professional life program. And actually, it's to celebrate the triumph of resilience, of your duty and your courage. To our graduates, I say this with deep admiration. You have not just completed a course, believe me. You have answered a calling. And it's a calling, just like I'm a doctor in my profession, firefighters, I really believe it's a calling. And I do believe that as for surgeons, you have to have a certain heart to do the choice you chose for. And I really believe that firefighting is not a profession just like that, but it's more challenging, and it's not predisposed for those faint-hearted ones. It is a role that demands the strength to run towards danger when others run away. That's how it is. We run away for the danger, and we call you to confront the danger for us. And what you have endured during this rigorous training, from intense theoretical modules to physically demanding practical simulations, it reflects your readiness to serve our country. But the new phase starts now. Your journey has not been easy in the training phase of your profession. For some, it began over even a decade ago, even before 10. We know everything about it, because recently we sat with each other, and the whole feedback that I got is, of course, that we all realized that this group here started even before 10. And along the way, you have weathered institutional changes, personal sacrifices, and I repeat, long-awaited recognition. And I come now around the corner to see the inside of the fire department, but I do realize, listening to all of you tediously, that it's about a neglect of a long-awaited recognition. For those that just graduated, you will not completely realize the last sentences that I said, but believe me, I do understand this long-awaited recognition.
I want to begin today by addressing the recent arrest of a minor found in possession of a firearm on a school bus. A weapon in the hands of a child on a school bus is a clear line that should never have been crossed. Gun violence is a serious and growing threat to public safety in St. Martin. It's unacceptable, and we have to take decisive action. As Minister of Justice and the highest authority responsible for upholding the rule of law, I want to make it absolutely clear. This ministry will not tolerate the spread of illegal firearms, nor the culture of fear that they bring with them. The ministry is doing its part, and we expect the same level of commitment from those we serve. Public safety is not the sole responsibility of the government, but it is a collective duty. We're not only enforcing the law, but we're also intervening. Through school resource officers, youth outreach, and close collaboration with the community, we're working to disrupt this cycle before it takes deeper root. Early intervention is key, especially when firearms are ending up in the hands of our youth. However, this issue extends beyond our borders. The rise in gun violence on the French side and our neighboring islands is alarming. We're seeing a troubling regional trend, and we are treating it with the urgency it deserves. St. Martin is actively working with regional partners to tighten border controls, improve intelligence sharing, and strengthen joint operations aimed at stopping the movement and the use of illegal firearms across our islands. To further support these efforts, we've extended the Stop, Drop, and Go gun amnesty program until May 16th. This program allows anyone possessing an illegal firearm to hand it in safely and anonymously, no questions asked. If you know someone with a weapon, I encourage you to tell them to do the right thing. Every firearm surrendered is one less threat to public safety. Beyond the Stop, Drop, and Go amnesty program, we're strengthening investigative capacity, deploying specialized units, and working hand in hand with the prosecutor's office to ensure that those responsible for gun-related crimes are identified, prosecuted, and removed from our streets. As crime evolves, so does our response. I also want to express our support to the Indian Merchant Society, or the Indian Merchant Association, and the members who have been directly affected by recent events. The business community is a vital pillar of our society, and we stand firmly behind your right to operate in a safe and secure environment. A meeting will be scheduled with the IMA to listen to your concerns and explore how the ministry can further strengthen safety and protection for the business sector. On this topic, I want to end with saying that St. Martin is not defined by its challenges, but we are defined by how we respond to them.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
Since taking office a year ago, you have issued 2 building stop, if not 3, none of which have been respected. Why not take the same jackhammer you used on the project in Kupakoy on this Italian businessman that have stopped you from paving the road there? And under what circumstances was this permit issued? Because a local, the owner of that land prior, requested a building permit for over 20 years, waited, never got one, sold the land, and an Italian developer now got the land, and then you can see the situation there. A fire truck cannot even go up there to render assistance in the event of a fire. What are you doing about this?
Thank you, Bibi. You know, I'm very happy that everybody is kind of waking up now to what I've been saying for a very long time about how permits are issued, the terms in which they're issued in. Let me just give a little bit of context because it's something we have been working with the family affected for quite a few months now on Manjack Drive. Several things. This permit was issued, indeed, not by my person. And in reviewing the file, we found that there were some indications from the different persons in the permit process indicating that this building is going to be too big for the parcel of land that it's on. Regardless of this, the permit was still issued. And what ended up happening in the process now, there was a building stop ordered, drafted, I believe about 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, that was not issued. In coming into office, I signed the stop order. And when it became a warning. Why? Because in fact, what the developer did was actually they made their building smaller than what was originally suggested in their permit. So what happened then is that they reduced the size of the building, leaving about 1.5 meters of extra road space available. Within the terms of what is allowed in terms of a width of a road, the road is still too narrow by the typical government VROMI standards to pave a road. Thus, that was the initial reason why in the processing of this project, the road could not be paved. When investigating the situation, we understood now that the road is actually indeed wider. We are going to, of course, pave the road. We've already spoken to the family about this. We actually sent the cadastre and the VROMI team about 2 months ago down to remeasure the entire property. Indeed, the space is still small, but what we have to now do is work with what we have. It's quite unfortunate because these are the continued things that we speak about. And, you know, people only seem to kind of resonate with this once it goes on social media. We've been saying this for some time. There's a reason why I keep preaching the need to stick to what the general guidelines of building are. Zoning laws, zoning regulations, they're not law, but they've been governing how we kind of advise within VROMI. Because in the end of the day, someone signs a permit a year ago, 5 years ago, it becomes a continuation of government's problem to solve now. But rest assured, we are working. I'm awaiting the final report on the remeasuring of that property, which took place, as well as the timeline for when we're going to go back to intervene to start again to start the paving of that road. And as well, we are looking into a number of different properties around the island where we're receiving a lot of complaints because everybody has been observing a lot of construction over the past couple of years and seemingly only now coming forward to the media with these concerns. And it's very unfortunate because a lot of the interventions and stops could have been done months ago, years ago, and now towards the end, we're seeing the impact of bad governance and bad decision making and the impact on both local and foreign investors. Because what's very interesting to me is that this exact same situation is what we are having in other developments. Be it foreigner or local, once something impacts someone's quality of life, it's wrong. Are the permits correct? That's a station passée. Again, as I indicated in Parliament, there's 2 reasons to withdraw a permit. One, if a permit is not worked on within a year, or 2, if you actually are building outside your permit norms. So with that, pulling back a permit again is very challenging. What we're trying to do is remedy the situation as best we can, and we are, of course, going to try our best to address the issue on Manjack Drive to ensure access. Indeed, a fire truck can pass. It fits very tightly. there is concerns around the long-term development of that entire area because there's a few homes in the vicinity of that building now. But as we continue to develop and build more, what is the impact going to be on the size of the road that you're going to have for the big development happening? So again, it's just to stress the importance of sticking to what we know are the norms and rules of good governance, listening to the advice of your ministry, in my case, VROMI, assessing it very well balanced, and also making the right decisions, and also respecting what is in those draft zoning laws. Because a lot of what we're seeing over the last couple of months coming out now is really the cause of not having followed what we know is on paper for what should be where it is. Yeah. So with that, with Manjak Drive, no, with the family, we have been in contact. They're very frustrated, and I can understand because I wasn't aware of the fact that the person had asked 20 years ago for a building permit. I understood that they were told that the land was too narrow to develop, and somehow now we have a permit for the similar land. Something to investigate, but rest assured, to residents of Manjak Drive, we've had several conversations, very, very passionate people, and I can understand the frustration. Because again, it's impacting, this one singular project is not only impacting the residents nearby, it's also going to impact long-term development of that entire area in terms of access and safety.
Can you tell me what measures were taken because the building stops issued were not respected?
Mm-hmm. So
because even the porch that he built recently, this was done during a building stop.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So one of the things that we found when visiting the site was basically the if you look at the road in itself, the developer actually made the building much smaller. So the bound of where his land is actually 1.5 meters further into the road. I've had discussions with the family again, asking them, do you have a road here? Do you have an access way? Oftentimes what we find when it comes to succession lands is that people have tracts of land and they eventually develop a road themselves, when in reality, it's not necessarily supposed to be a road, it's a right of way. So that they do have access to a road in their property. But again, the property which he owns, based on this, does go directly into the road, and he's actually pushed back 1.5 meters off the road. The building stop issue, it has to do with the fact that what he submitted to was a 2-story building, and what he has now gone to try and do is to do preparatory works for potential 3rd story, which is not at all in the building permit issued, and that's where the stop order came in to stop that development from happening. So he has to cap at 2 stories.
It's time for a new brand that is as bold, vibrant, and colorful as the island of St. Martin, with colors drawn from our diversity, cultural heritage, and nature. Our breathtaking beaches, waters, and sun, the majestic brown pelican, our national symbol, the radiant yellow sage, our national flower, the historic border monument signifying the Dutch and French sides, our exciting cruise, yachting, and boating ports, renowned Maho Beach and St. Martin Airport, the hub to the Caribbean. All these parts come together to create the shape of the island of St. Martin. More than a logo. It's a new brand that engages, excites, and will inspire travelers to book. It's time to tell the St. Martin story, to reintroduce travelers to St. Martin, to honor our past, to embrace our present, and shape our future. Our culture and diversity, Dutch and French sides, unrivaled cuisine, twice the nightlife, entertainment, and shopping, cruises, boating, and yachting. Twice the adventure, exploration, and relaxation. Splendid and scenic accommodations. Pinel, Tentamar, and island hopping in the Caribbean. Whatever your taste, St. Martin has more. Experience twice the Caribbean. St. Martin.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
I'll maybe, to agree with my fellow lawyer in the room, the word objection can mean many things, I think in some instances an objection means, yes, there were errors, and an objection can also be a person's general sentiment. I'll also, through you, Madam Chair, go back to, what MP Meyer said, that we need to treat the justice workers as individuals. And I can, as a minister, yes, I have an obligation to issue landsbesluiten, but I also have an obligation to ensure that my workers are acknowledged, respected, and heard. And I feel like when I go to all the meet and greets, because contrary to what was said today, we do meet with justice workers all the time. They meet with multiple members of my staff. They come to me directly. There is an open door. Maybe it's not Friday at 2 o'clock, but there is always an open door. And I think many justice workers would attest to the fact that when they have reached out with anything that was urgent or pressing or important to them, that I've immediately made time in my schedule. And I'm sure the unions can attest to the same, because I've gotten calls from the union where from 1 minute to the next I stopped what I was doing and I went over to address rooms filled with civil servants. So this is exactly the reason why I found it necessary to really look into the process, because I think that we still have disgruntled workers, and it's not for me to throw jabs at any of my predecessors. Again, as I stated in my speech, I said, all of this was done with good intention. And we keep learning from those things. And in many of the discussions that I had, when I went to meet and greets and I spoke to people and I said, did you get your LBA? And then it was, yeah, but it's not good. Or it was, oh, I got a placement offer and I never got a response. And so we have years of workers, since 10, they feel they didn't get what they were entitled to. And now again, they still feel like they're not being listened to. And this is exactly why I want to incorporate them earlier into the process for them to feel heard. Because you even have people that say, I ain't gonna bother object because it don't matter what I say anyway. So then, yes, it's everybody's right to object. But if that is the sentiment, to me, I as a minister have that obligation, the same way that they can find their way to me anytime that they want, for me to listen to them and include them. And that is precisely the reason why we're saying, let's have these conversations earlier. Because sometimes that can better inform your decision-making as a minister as well. Because sometimes they have extra documents that you didn't have, that's not anywhere in any other system, that then you can say, oh, actually, let's adjust this LBA, instead of then having to go through the process. You got to go to an objection committee. I got to pay an objection committee. You can go to court. I got to pay the court. As a minister, I also have an obligation to keep the expenses of the country under control. And if I'm opening a door to litigation, then to me, I'm also not handling responsibly in my duty. Then there were some questions about the processes, procedures. My understanding is batches 1 to 5 were handled by Minister Richardson, batches 6 to 12 by Minister Lewis, and I understand that from batch 11 there was a change in the process by the SG, and that process led to some delays in the processing of the batches, which is also why we recognize that things were not happening as they should, and said, let's figure out how we can restructure this. And then, of course, I also got a question about the integral worker that was involved in this process, and that is actually the individual that processed all 12 batches before, or I should say all 11. So 1 to 5 through Minister Richardson, and 6 through 11 through Minister Lewis, which I'm sure he can attest to the integral role that that individual played throughout the process. So it's just we've seen little changes along the way that have, again, sometimes caused delays. And that's been a reason that, I've said, let's take a different look. And again, if you have people, unfortunately, the process was also made maybe too dependent on a particular person. And now we see when a person like that leaves our organization, nobody knows what to do anymore. And that has also, to be very frank here, been a reason for the delay. Because we simply, it seems like we're feeling around in the dark, and things are not happening fast enough or the way that they should. And that's why we're looking for how we can do this in a quicker way. And I agree, that objections will always occur, but I think it's what we've noticed is the type of objections, the type of sentiments that are there. These are things that we can address in an earlier phase that don't necessarily need people to go to court or to go to an objection, so we can, if we have these conversations before, then we can better address the problems. And I think, as was said here today, there's been a very serious lack of communication with the justice workers throughout this process. And that's why we've wanted to have timely communication and have them involved more seriously in the process. Then I wanted to also touch on the payments, because there has been, so there's 2 phases that have been agreed upon. And these 2 phases, from my understanding, were also the reason that the governor at the time agreed to the entire function work process. There were 2 phases that were agreed upon in the unions, in the CCSU. Phase 1 is the period of January 1st, 2023, until the day that you receive your landsbesluit. Those payments are lump sum payments. Once you get your LB, that was in the slide. When you get that LB, then you receive then your payment retroactive to January 1st, 2023. Phase 2 of this entire process is going to be the period from 10/10/10, or whatever date you entered into service, up until December 31st, 2022. That, within there were indeed agreements made within the CCSU for payment plans. I have that over here. Currently, the estimated amount for the entire procedure, or for this entire process, is roughly 44.5 million guilders. And that would then be, of course, the extra retroactive payments that we talk about. There is a disbursement plan, as MP Roseberg had already alluded to. If your payout is more than 100,000 guilders, then it's 10 annual installments. If your payout is more than 70,000 guilders but less than 100, 7 annual installments, and et cetera, et cetera. There's a sliding scale that goes down. And then there's a special category for seniors that are 60 plus, up to a maximum of 4 years. And my understanding, this is somewhat dated information that I'm getting from previous ministers, but there are about 100 people that are eligible in that category.